The first one is the whole concept of the AI factory. For an AI factory, you're providing that with electricity, you're providing that with data, and out comes tokens. Tokens are intelligence, and intelligence could be revenue for certain companies. But once you build it, it's not like a traditional data center. The old data center was a cost center. Today's AI factory is actually a revenue generating machine. Jensen has said this many times before, the more you buy, the more you make. This is why it's an AI factory.
Welcome to Impact Insights, where we explore the ideas and innovations shaping our future. I'm Imad Akhtar, co-anchor of Money FM 89.3's Breakfast Show, and today I'm joined by Raj Mirpuri, Vice President of Enterprise and Cloud Sales at NVIDIA, a company at the forefront of accelerated computing and AI innovation. We'll be diving into how they're contributing to the future of intelligentization and the insights they've gained from working with leading organizations across the region, from high-performance infrastructure to real-world AI breakthroughs. Raj, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate being here.
Appreciate having you on. Before we get into the meat of the conversation, it would be great to set some context. What is one common misunderstanding around AI that you often hear from clients?
We often hear that generative AI or AI is plug and play and requires very little effort to set up. We just want to make sure that folks understand that you could start with a model, but most of these models tend to be very general. And so to make it specific, very specific to your use case, whether you're a company building a product, whether you're a country looking to build your own sovereign AI, there's some level of customization that's going to be required. So starting with the right tools, the right infrastructure, the right software package, and the right partnerships will be the best way to deliver Gen AI that drives value and productivity.
Now, you work with some of the largest enterprises and governments in the region. Would you be so kind as to share some of the toughest requests that you are hearing from C-suites lately?
Yeah. I would probably put into 5 different buckets. The toughest requests we get from enterprises as well as from countries. First one being, how do we scale AI securely and reliably? We hear that a lot, right? So how do we build this and make this, make sure we protect this and it's for our folks or our citizens or our employees? So how do I do this and scale this up within my organization? The second one we also face is it a build versus buy? I need the right infrastructure. I need to build my AI factory. Should I build it? Should I partner with someone else, or should I buy it from someplace? And how would I go about something like that, right? The third part, of course, is how do I integrate this? I've started with something that's very generic. It could be a proprietary model. It could be an open source model. I've started with this. Now, how do I integrate this customization that I've done to this model and bring it into my workflows? And then, of course, we talked about being responsible, being secure, and then finally, what are some of the partnerships do we have to build? Who do I need to partner with, and what are some of the ecosystem folks? Because I might be in this business. Are the apps in my ecosystem ready? So those are some of the 5 or so topics and tough questions that we face. And we're constantly pondering on how to go help our customers to make sure that they can go solve these questions.
Yeah, let's touch on the build versus buy theme that you just outlined, specifically focusing in on the build aspect. The hardware resources that make AI models work, in other words, compute, is, you could say, the proverbial engine driving AI innovation. Now, as demand for faster and more powerful AI infrastructure accelerates across the Asia-Pacific region, what do you see as the biggest challenges and, by extension, opportunities in meeting this growing need for scalable, high-performance computing?
I think the first one is the whole concept of the AI factory. And so we always talk about the AI factory. It's just like any other factory. There's input and there's an output. For an AI factory, you're providing that with electricity, you're providing that with data, and out comes tokens. Tokens our intelligence. And intelligence could be revenue for certain companies. It could be a product for a certain company. So this is no different than any other factory. You have to make sure you start with the right AI factory and you have the right data, you have the electricity, the space, the power to go build this. But once you build it, it's not like a traditional data center. The old data center was a cost center. Today's AI factory is actually a revenue generating machine. So Jensen has said this many times before, the more you buy, the more you make. This is why it's an AI factory. So, but that's the start. What we do is we start with a reference stack or reference architecture for that particular factory. It's a great balance between the GPUs, the networking, the storage, and of course, the critical part of that, the software. Make sure that all of this is tested and verified so that when we ship to these customers and they're trying to deploy this at scale, it happens fast. So your time to market, your time to tokens is fast. We've seen a traditional data center take anywhere from 6 to 9 months. And you've heard publicly from, for example, folks like Elon Musk, where they were able to stand this up in 3 to 4 weeks with 100,000 GPUs. So starting with the reference architecture, building the right AI factory, making sure you have all of the software that helps you customize, fine-tune, retrieve your data, and make sure that you can fine-tune it for your specific example. Make sure that helps drive the productivity for your particular factory. But that's just a start. The second part of that is localization, working with local partners. And for example, here we work with the Singapore Supercomputing Center, and they do a great job for us in partnering with us in building workflows that can be deployed for climate research, for medicine, for e-commerce. And so you've got to have a full ecosystem of ISVs, of software partners, of system integrators. NCS here, a great solution provider, as well as system integrator that's putting it all together. The last mile is going to be just as important. All of these factors will help drive success with generative AI.
Yeah, and even if all those moving parts do come together effectively, there's still a likelihood that enterprises will face challenges and disruptions. So how should organizations create their systems and IT environments to ensure digital resiliency for the new era of AI computation?
I think you have to start with the right mind and right mindset that says, I want to work backwards. I want this to be safe. I want to be secure. I want to be able to scale. I want to be able to build something if I could train in one country but deploy it globally. I need that architecture. I need to have an ecosystem that I can scale and still be able to protect my data and keep it secure. It's possible that you're training in your data on-prem and then deploying it in the cloud globally. And so that's one way to do this. So the resiliency comes with all the security, the scalability, and making sure that's part of your product design even before you start building your AI. And that otherwise what happens is you build something and it doesn't solve your particular problem. So working backwards from your end goal is always the most important thing. And so that's how we deliver digital resiliency for your particular workflows or use cases.
Where do you see in your experience areas in which organizations are lacking on this front?
If you remember in 2024, there were a lot of POCs that were going on. Every company or every enterprise was building a POC. But then you get to the end of the year, you find out that a lot of the POCs never went to production. And what happened was it was a certain use case. They said, I just need to go figure this out. I think what's changed now is with going from perceptive AI to agentic AI, what has happened is it's much easier to build generative AI and be able to have an agent that can talk to another agent. So an agent is, think of that as a digital human. It's very task oriented. So you can build it successfully, test it for a particular workflow, but then that framework of agents can talk to each other and automate this. Of course, you're going to have a human in the loop, right? But the complexity of what an agent can deliver is just incredible. So we've seen this where we've seen customers being able to deliver multiple agents working together. We know of a canonical example, ServiceNow, for example, that we talk about, has done a fantastic job with an HR agent, with a creative agent, all of them working together. And so if you're a customer ServiceNow, for example, now you're able to take that and be able to deploy it much faster and because you already know how to use that app, you've used it previously, and that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build this ecosystem of known apps, known solution providers you work with that you've already deployed that have integrated an embedded generative AI into their workflow that reduces false positives as well as failure modes.
Are there any risks to scaling too quickly?
We're seeing examples of some enterprises that have embraced it and some have not, if they're taking it slow. It really depends on whether you're a regulated industry or a non-regulated industry. We expect that companies and enterprises that do deploy generative AI will have a competitive advantage longer term. But the pace at which they do is going to be dependent on how they go about doing that. So we've seen in non-regulated industries and even regulated industries like financial services where a lot of our customers are running fast and deploying at scale.
Yeah.
You may start with one use case, for example, fraud detection. You may start with a different use case, maybe pricing. And then at some point, you marry all of these together. You say, now I have it for my entire workflow. It also, we've seen where work effectively is where it starts with a certain group that has demonstrated that it does work and then be able to scale it out within the entire organization. When you start with something very large, the chances of complete success right off the bat is not guaranteed. And so I think being able to recognize that as a C-suite, you sort of work through that and then be able to go scale that out within your organization.
I'd love to hear more examples where AI has truly made a difference, especially in, let's say, public services, healthcare, or inclusion here in the APAC region.
Yeah. Well, we already talked about the Singapore Supercomputing Center, right? And that was a perfect example of a local company. I'll give you some other examples. For example, Tapway in Malaysia. They're a IoT-based company, and they've built this traffic control algorithms, and then they're helping, with multiple millions of folks using that particular app. We have an example in, Indonesia, GoTo, which is their version of Grab or Uber, for example, and that is completely using AI and helping reduce congestion and move, drive public transportation. In New Zealand, we have an example of Linker that's a geospatial app and a geospatial application workflow where they're looking at crop sequestration and carbon sequestration and being able to help farming, being able to decide where to farm and how to go drive the best use of land, for example. Many more examples within the region where we've seen success. We've seen success in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Indonesia, and Singapore, of course. We've seen examples of large language models that are being built. For example, CLLM and C-Lion were built specifically here, but also Llama-based language models were built for Japan, as well as in Mandarin for Taiwan. So these are all local use cases that we've seen tremendous benefit, and the pace of innovation has been incredible too.
Are there any industries that are perhaps lagging behind in terms of jumping on the AI bandwagon?
I believe that it's not for lack of trying. I believe that it is going to be harder for some of the industries because they have to make sure the ecosystem is fully ready.
Yeah.
And I think that industries where you do see the ecosystem is ready, and I gave you an example of ServiceNow for IT services, they're running fast. Social internet, it's running fast, right? You see this every day, examples that save us time. We're using generative AI every day, but there's many examples, where I think innovation is going to come quick. There's examples in healthcare, in public sector, where data gravity matters, and so making sure that you're building the right model and have the digital resiliency takes a little bit longer. But it's just a matter of time where they'll start seeing the benefits there too.
Well, I guess whether you're ready or not, AI is here to stay. Raj, thank you so much for joining Impact Insights.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me here. Appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing your insights, Raj. We really value the partnership, and we're looking forward to continuing to co-create what's next together.